Turn off the lights. For a moment, the room disappears. You can still hear the world around you, but you cannot see it. And yet, you probably do not feel afraid. You know there are walls around you. A door separates you from the outside. You have a bed beneath you, windows you can close, electric lights you can switch on, and perhaps a phone beside you that can illuminate the room in an instant. Now remove all of it. No electricity, no flashlight, no locked door, no mattress, no glass windows, no heating, no alarm system. Now imagine standing outside after sunset with a small group of other humans, surrounded by darkness. You cannot see very far. You do not know what is moving beyond the edge of the light. The temperature is dropping, and somewhere in that darkness there may be predators that are faster, stronger, and better equipped for the night than you are. Then comes the simplest question: how do you sleep? For prehistoric humans, night was not simply the time when the sun went away. It was a fundamental survival problem. Humans are unusual animals. We are not especially fast. We do not have claws capable of tearing through flesh. We lack the night vision of many predators. Our bodies are also vulnerable to cold, exposure, and injury. And yet, over hundreds of thousands of years, humans spread into environments far beyond the warm regions where our ancestors evolved. That creates a strange contradiction. If darkness made humans so vulnerable, how did they survive it? The answer was probably not one invention. There was no single night when a human suddenly discovered the secret of survival. Instead, humans gradually changed the conditions of the night itself. And one of the most important tools in that transformation was fire. But before fire could change the night, humans first had to survive being exposed to it. Imagine a small group settling down as darkness approaches. The landscape that seemed familiar during the day has become something else. Trees become silhouettes. Distances become difficult to judge. Movement becomes uncertain. Every sound becomes harder to interpret. A rustle in vegetation could be harmless. It could also mean an animal is approaching. For a human, darkness creates a dangerous problem because vision is one of our greatest advantages. During the day, we can scan the landscape, we can see threats coming, we can recognize useful plants, find water, follow tracks, and coordinate movement with other members of the group. At night, much of that advantage disappears. And darkness brings another problem: cold. The moment the sun disappears, the environment begins to change. In many landscapes, the temperature can fall substantially after sunset. For a human body without modern insulation or heating, remaining warm is not a trivial problem. Then, there is shelter. A place to sleep does not need to resemble a modern house to be useful. Even a relatively simple structure can change the environment immediately around a human body. It can reduce exposure to wind. It can provide some separation from rain. It can create a more controlled space in which people can rest. Archaeological evidence tells us that prehistoric humans did build shelters, although the exact form and function of many structures remain difficult to reconstruct. At Terra Amata in southern France, archaeologists identified post holes and other evidence interpreted as belonging to shelters dating to roughly 400,000 years ago. Some interpretations suggest structures that may have been remarkably large, potentially approaching 15 meters in length. But there is an important caution here. Archaeologists do not have a prehistoric blueprint showing exactly how these structures were used every night. We cannot simply look at a series of post holes and say, with complete certainty, this is exactly where everyone slept. The evidence tells us that humans were capable of creating organized spaces. The precise details of daily life inside those spaces are much harder to recover. And this is where fire becomes especially important, because fire did something that shelter alone could not. It changed the night. A controlled fire produces heat. It produces light. It can make a shelter more comfortable. It can make certain kinds of food easier to prepare. And importantly, it creates a visible boundary between the people gathered around it and the darkness beyond. That does not mean fire was a magical shield against predators. There is no simple archaeological evidence proving that prehistoric humans sat beside a fire every night, while predators waited helplessly outside. But fire clearly had enormous practical potential, and the archaeological evidence for humans using fire goes surprisingly deep into our past. At Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, researchers have reported evidence of burning within archaeological deposits dating to around 1 million years ago. Burned bone and ashed plant material provide important evidence that fire activity occurred at the site. This is significant because establishing deliberate fire use is surprisingly difficult. A landscape can burn naturally, lightning can ignite vegetation, wildfires can leave behind burned plants, bone, and sediment. So archaeologists have to ask a much harder question than simply, is there evidence of burning? They have to ask whether the burning happened in a context that indicates human involvement. That is why older claims for controlled fire remain debated. At sites such as Kubifora, evidence associated with burning has been investigated at ages around 1.5 million years. But distinguishing deliberate human fire use from naturally occurring fire is difficult. The deeper we go into the archaeological record, the more careful we have to become. There may never have been a single first campfire. Fire may have entered human life gradually. Perhaps the earliest relationship was not about creating fire from nothing. It may have involved using naturally occurring fire, preserving it, transporting embers, and eventually learning increasingly reliable ways to control it. Whatever the exact sequence, once humans could maintain fire, the night changed dramatically. Imagine the difference. Before fire, darkness surrounds the group. After fire, there is a small region of light. It is not much by modern standards. A campfire does not illuminate an entire landscape, but it creates a zone where people can see each other. They can work, they can prepare food, they can interact, they can remain active for longer, and they can create a warmer environment around themselves. The fire becomes more than a source of heat. It becomes a center. But there is another problem. Fire does not maintain itself. Someone has to find fuel. Someone has to bring it back. Someone has to keep the fire burning. Someone has to decide how much fuel can be used now and how much should be saved. That simple requirement introduces something much bigger into the story. Cooperation. A fire that must be maintained creates a recurring task shared among members of a group. And human survival has always involved far more than individual strength. A person alone may struggle to maintain a shelter, gather food, care for an infant, watch for danger, and maintain a fire at the same time. A group can divide those demands. One person can gather fuel, another can prepare food, others can remain alert, others can care for children. The group becomes a survival system. This matters because human vulnerability did not disappear. Humans did not suddenly become stronger than predators. Instead, humans became increasingly capable of modifying the conditions in which they lived. That distinction is crucial. A lion is physically dangerous, but a lion cannot build a shelter. It cannot organize a reliable supply of firewood. It cannot create a controlled source of heat. It cannot use tools to transform its immediate surroundings in increasingly complex ways. Humans compensate for physical vulnerability by changing the environment around them, and the night may have been one of the most important environments to change. Think about what happens when fire and shelter exist together. The shelter reduces exposure. The fire provides heat. The light changes visibility. Food can be processed or cooked. People can gather around a common center. The space becomes more predictable. The outside world still exists. Predators have not disappeared. Cold has not disappeared. Storms have not disappeared. But the human relationship with those dangers has changed. This may help explain something remarkable about human expansion. Our ancestors eventually occupied environments that presented very different challenges from the landscapes in which earlier humans lived. Cold environments demanded new strategies. Seasonal environments demanded planning. Different landscapes required different resources. And survival increasingly depended on controlling what happened around the human body rather than simply adapting the body itself. Shelter is one example. Fire is another. Clothing, tools, food processing, and cooperation are others. None of these technologies made humans invincible. They made humans adaptable. And that distinction may be the real story of prehistoric survival. There is a temptation to imagine human evolution as a story of becoming physically superior. But humans did not evolve into the strongest animal in the landscape. We evolved extraordinary ways of working together and manipulating our surroundings. Even sleep reveals this. Modern humans often think of sleep as a private activity. We enter a room, close a door, turn off a light, get into bed, and disappear from the outside world for several hours. But prehistoric sleep could not have existed inside the same level of environmental control. We cannot know exactly how every prehistoric human slept. Archaeology cannot preserve someone's nightly routine, and modern hunter-gatherers cannot simply be treated as living fossils of Paleolithic life. Their environments, technologies, histories, and social systems are different, but comparative research can still show something important. Shelters can create controlled microenvironments. They can reduce thermal stress and change the conditions experienced by people sleeping inside them. That does not prove that a particular prehistoric group slept in exactly the same way. It simply demonstrates a broader principle. Humans can use structures to reshape the environment immediately around their bodies. And perhaps that is the key to understanding the prehistoric night. The breakthrough was not necessarily learning how to defeat darkness. It was learning how to live within it. Fire did not eliminate the night. Shelters did not eliminate predators. Clothing did not eliminate cold. Cooperation did not eliminate danger. Instead, humans gradually created a buffer between themselves and the environment. That buffer could be a flame, a shelter, a layer of clothing, a group of people watching, working, and caring for one another. And over time, those buffers could become increasingly sophisticated. The night remained dangerous, but humans no longer had to experience it in exactly the same way as the animals around them. This also changes how we should think about fire. It is easy to reduce prehistoric fire to one familiar image, a group of early humans sitting around a campfire and cooking meat. But fire may have been far more important than food preparation alone. It could provide warmth, light, a place for activity, a way to alter food, a focal point for social interaction, and a tool for transforming the immediate environment. Its importance may have come precisely because it solved several problems at once. But even that does not explain everything. Fire only works if people maintain it. Shelters only work if people build them. Children require care. Food has to be gathered. Fuel has to be collected. Danger still has to be monitored. The technology of survival was therefore never only physical, it was social. The ability to survive the night may have depended not simply on what one person could do, but on what a group could accomplish together. And this leads to the unexpected answer. How did prehistoric humans survive the night? They did not survive because the night became harmless. They survived because humans gradually learned to make parts of the night more manageable. They changed darkness with light. They changed cold with fire and shelter. They changed exposure with structures. They changed individual vulnerability through cooperation. The environment remained powerful, but humans became increasingly capable of negotiating with it. Think back to the moment when you turned off the lights at the beginning of this story. The room went dark, but almost nothing about your environment actually changed. You still knew where the walls were. You knew the door was there. You knew the bed was beneath you. You knew that if you became cold, you could change the temperature. If you became hungry, you could enter the kitchen. If something frightened you, you could turn on the lights. Modern life hides an extraordinary amount of environmental control behind ordinary objects. A wall, a roof, a light switch, a blanket, a locked door, a heater. We rarely think of them as survival technology, but in another time, controlling the environment around the human body was a profound achievement. For prehistoric humans, the night was not simply a period of darkness between 2 days. It was an environment filled with uncertainty, and slowly, through fire, shelter, cooperation, and other technologies, humans began to reshape that environment. The most important invention may not have been the first fire, or the first shelter, or any single tool. It may have been the growing ability to transform a dangerous environment into a place where humans could survive, because humans did not become powerful by becoming stronger than the night. They became powerful by learning that the night itself could be changed.